This is something that's pretty open to interpretation, and there's some specific things that you could dig out throughout the game. However, I believe that the take on this is a more general thing they could say, being that ever since the short time that this game came out, companies as well as websites and different software applications have only continued to get more and more corrupt and unusable to the point where they're basically just burying themselves entirely. You all know about Chowderman's Lost Track, that you have to find one-legged Chowderman, and while it is still funny that he gets the timing of the music wrong, this thing overall is completely pure and emotional and comes from the right place, and it's genuinely a super tragic and gut-wrenching song, and it's believed that if Chowderman actually released this, then he could have ended up saving his career. It could have been an absolute success, and this is alluded to in the game. However, he ultimately wanted to keep it to himself, it seems, and he just ended up supposedly passing away without any sort of fanfare or anything. So we've talked about Sane plenty of times, as well as even the supposed scrapped third savable Minecraft victim. Now it's finally time to talk about Carl, the other person who you can save in the final game. So Carl, if you don't know, is the biker skeleton guy who has the widowed wife. Or I mean, he's widowed, his wife passed away. And saving him might seem like the right thing to do, but this has different depressing, cynical connotations to it. So Carl is implied that after losing his wife is just in a state of misery and depression and is just living totally alone by himself, secluded, possibly in a retirement home. However, he then gets friends through Hypnospace, like online friends. So essentially you have two choices to make, whichever one you think is better. You can either kill Carl abruptly by not sending him to the mine crash, and he'll die, maybe arguably somewhat horribly, albeit amongst after seeing his friends online. Or you could choose to save him and have him lose Hypnospace and live out the remainder of his life, however long that is, completely alone and sad. It's your choice. I've heard that this is something that could be put up higher on the iceberg, and I kind of get that. However, this is still something that I feel like has so much like interpretation and speculation up for you to think of, and it's just never directly told or spelled in the game, being that Freezer purposely messed up his lip sync song. And, you know, this might seem like, well, what do you mean? Like, it says here, like, oh, I just messed up and put on the wrong track, blah, blah, blah. However, the person who's saying, like, oh, Cool Punk isn't dead and stuff, like, it's possible that's not even really ran by Freezer. And, like, the response in general just feels like a very, like, corporate, like, I have to say this sort of thing. Or it could just be a cover-up to make it not obvious that he threw it all away on purpose, and, you know, it's not sincere. He's like, oh, don't worry, Cool Punk isn't dead, blah, 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 but, like, yeah, it really is, because, like, part of the backstory of Freezer is a bit messy to put together, but, like, it implies, like, it was a thing that he generally started, then it got picked up, and it was like, okay, well, we can make money off of this, sure, why not, but then it just got way too controlled, and like, it just lost all of its integrity and, you know, usual, like, executive meddling type of shit, and Freezer ended up hating that, and it's implied that he's also the person behind the fungi scene, and that's something that he moved on after being done with Cool Punk stuff. So you get this disaster event called Cool Fest, and even, like, before the helicopter crash and stuff happened, he probably already planned this, being that he's just gonna mess up the lip sync, and the helicopter crash probably just helped spell what a disaster it was. And yeah, I mean, you might think, like, okay, so how can he just randomly forget, like, what seems to be his most popular song? And, you know, that's weird. And, like, the way he stops too, like, he just, like, awkwardly stops pausing, even though the song is clearly still going on. And it's a really funny scene, though. And yeah, it just all comes together, making that like he purposely sabotaged that so he could lose off Cool Punk's credibility and focus on his other music that isn't corporately meddled. This last entry is a very like every copy is personalized shout out type of thing, being that this is such a huge and wild game full of little details and secrets and everybody having their own like personalized playthrough. It just brings up the question that just maybe some players have stumbled on to pages that only they've seen in their own copies, and maybe it's only appeared one time and it's never documented and nobody else has ever seen them. Anyway, thank you for watching if you've been here. You can let me know if this has sucked or not, or if there's anything that could be added, but see ya.